Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome back to Unmatched Adventures Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is video part 2. If you didn't check out part 1 for whatever reason, go back, check it out. We go over the 4 turtles, their decks, kind of what they can do. So we'll see how they'll kind of get an idea of how they can operate in the cooperative adventures mode, or how they'll operate in just regular versus. In part 2 here, we're going to go over, we're going to look at the map here quick, kind of see what that's all about. And then we're going to look at the villains for the adventure deck, which we have Krang and Shredder. Of course, they're a pile of 6 different henchmen, and the mechanics they get to do. I'm not going to go over, like, super in-depth of how the adventure mode works, but I just want kind of a brief run-through. So cooperative rules, up to 4 heroes will work together to defeat a villain controlled by the game. You can use heroes in a set or mix and match heroes from other unmatched sets. You can use heroes in a set as competitive games. Includes 2 villains, Shredder and Krang, each with their own objective. Each time the villain completes its objective, things get harder for the heroes. Meanwhile, the villain's minions threaten the heroes with their own attacks. The villain completes all its objectives, the heroes lose. The cooperative game, players should communicate what's in their hands, coordinate turns, and make plans. Players can play with open hands if preferred. Unless these rules specify otherwise, all the unmatched rules work as normal. So when you're playing as one of the turtles, or whoever you're playing as, you're going to follow the same. I play my cards, I have my scheming, I have my maneuvers, my actions. You do all the stuff you normally do. You just have generally a different objective. So instead of just being like, hey, there's one other guy, or there's 3 other opponents I have to defeat. Yes, you need to defeat the main guy, Shredder or Krang, but he also has his henchmen running around. You might want to focus on them first, but you might need to focus on Shredder. Plus, then they also have some sort of plan that they're trying to enact, which you will want to defeat as well. The gameplay basically starts out the same way as you set up the map, just like you, for the most part, set up a regular game. Heroes card, their deck, their health tokens. You put the characters on the board and one of the numbers or sidekick next to them. So you have like our turtles in the 3 different spots there. Then the villain goes in the middle and all their henchmen. So you're only going to play 3 of the 6 henchmen every time. And then they might have special stacks that get built up for certain cards depending on who you're playing. The characters might have special tokens. And then each board's going to have a different thing for how they track how that character wins. If you're playing a regular game, basically you just ignore the top and some of the special little icons, and it works like a regular map. On the bottom here, they're actually going to say how Shredder gets set up. So he's going to have more health depending on the number of players. He has his 24-foot soldier tokens, and he has his initiative cards, which get added to the deck. And that's going to say how to set up some of his extra stuff, which we'll go over in just a minute. For Krang, he's going to have up to 35. He has a bunch of extra different tokens, and he has some extra steps as well, which we'll just kind of look at them individually. Generally, how the game is played, though, is you're going to use this initiative deck to decide who gets to go. So instead of going in clockwise around the order, or however, you draw a card and it's going to have whichever villain you're playing against, any extra cards they would have, any players in the game, and a number of foot soldiers or henchmen in the deck, which you'll fight. And then whoever you play, you get to play them in order. And they're all going to have one of 2 things on there. They're going to have either a right now or an end of turn effect. Right now, I'll explain exactly what it does. So like when Shredder played, he gets to do this. Then player 2 gets to take their full turn like they would normally do. Then Leatherhead gets to do stuff. And then eventually, when everybody's went, then you have the end of round effect, which the villains usually get like their second action, where players get 2 actions. Most of the villains have an immediate one, and then they have an end of round action. If you can defeat them before the end of the round, you don't have to worry about it. That's kind of how that's showing right there. And you can eliminate stuff as well. So if one of your players gets eliminated, either your main fighter or your sidekick, you can still play as long as the other one's still in play. And anytime you eliminate a henchman, they're out of the game, remove their initiative card, then you don't have to deal with them anymore. If you defeat the main villain, then hey, you won the game. Villain cards are going to look very much like a regular character's card, except they're all technically versatile cards. They're going to have an attack and defense on there, separate numbers, but they'll have a boost effect, they'll have what abilities they do during combat, after combat, all that different stuff. But if they're performing an attack, then they'll just do the attack portion. If they're performing it for a defense, they'll just do the defense one. And there's other couple little things there and stuff as well. Then enemy's turn. How do they get to determine? They get them. Each target indicates moves for each target, then makes one attack if necessary. So it kind of gets two actions. It gets a move and an attack. If it's adjacent to a target, it attacks whoever the players choose to have an attack. If there's a closer target, they try and move to that target without exceeding its value. And if there's no target, they don't move and the threat meter moves. So this is an interesting thing to keep in mind because this threat meter is eventually going to progress them towards winning the game. Sometimes you might just have to sacrifice and let them do it, but the other times you might have to push the pressure and try and be next to them or near them or within range of them on their turn. Because if you just run away too much, then they're just going to keep doing their threat without any resistance, and then they're going to win the game quicker. So it's just saying, Shredder can attack Leo or Splinter. The players get to choose who they want to attack. If he is a distance between Shredder and Splinter are at a distance, he can move to Leo, but since Leo is closer, he will attack Leo no matter what. And if he's too far away to hit him, then you just move the threat meter up. Enemy will have their movement, tells you how many spaces they get to move. Combat works basically the same way. They just draw a card from the top of the deck, decide what's going to be. I'm not going to get into too much of all that. Some of them have special tokens. Ability tokens are not fighters. It cannot be attacked, and only refers to fighters or minions. Do not affect them. They can only be removed according to enemy special rules. Then every deck, whether it's the main villain or the henchman, will have a deception card, which basically once drawn doesn't give them an attack or defense, but anytime it gets to the discard pile, whether someone discarded it for them, or if they played it, or whatever, then they get to reshuffle their decks. So randomly, they're going to reshuffle their decks. So it's not like they have 6 cards. They're going to play through all 6 cards and reshuffle their deck. And then you know kind of what they have. They might get halfway through their deck, play your 2 most powerful cards. They might get reshuffle their deck, and they might get them 2 powerful cards again fairly quickly. So it's always adding that interesting threat to the game. Then we have the threat track itself, which we just go through. The numbers may be on one board, they may not be on the other board. They're just going to determine based on the player or the villain. So Shredder's uses this, Krang's doesn't necessarily use that. Another characters in a different one might use something different. But if it ever gets to the end, it has to move 2. It goes 1, 2, and switches back around. But once it hits the end of it, that triggers the next step. So some of them usually only have 3 or 4 or 5 times you can have the threat meter fill up before we'll get there. So again, if there's 10 spots, they might have other cards that advance threats, or if they do things, they'll advance the threats. But also just, again, not being near them at the end of the turn can advance it, and that can, end up being very bad very quickly. Alright, so then we just have the other thing. Just if you want to add other characters, you can definitely do that. Just sometimes there might be things that affect certain things, like enemies' decisions. May say to do something or not do something, or it might choose an opponent's card versus not in effect. Sometimes printed value depends. Small fighters drawing cards. Just some of the things that they didn't design that character in mind when they were making a cooperative mode. Some of the earlier ones, I think now the later ones, they kind of keep a little bit more open mind. Also feeling competitive, you can also take all of these guys to Unmatched, or you can play in New York City. You just don't place the villain stuff on the board. Cool. So then next part's talking about how Shredder and Krang and the initiative cards all work. We'll look at those in just a moment. Let's take a look at the board quick. And then we can hop into their decks. So we're going to look at Shredder's board. I'm going to move my box out of the way. So this is a big giant map that can be used for 4 players. So it's going to still have its little diamonds on here to say where the starting points are. This is a very interesting map. So for the purpose of what Shredder wants to do, is he wants to control the 5 boroughs. The Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn and Staten Island. And they're all kind of separated by waterways just to kind of keep track of where each one are. But then they still have their zones. Like we have the orange, yellow, green. So it's very interesting. So I was like looking at how these boards are set up per what they do. Because blue is right in the middle, and it kind of gets a little bit into every area. It kind of just actually only gets into purple over here. It doesn't get into any of the other areas. So if you're in blue, you really only got these two. And the same with purple is only over in the corner. Red's only over in its corner. Orange is really only over in its corner, and yellow is only in its corner. The only two areas that really kind of spread out a little bit is green, gets into 4 areas here, and then the white baseball gets into a couple areas up there. So it's kind of neat because it's like if you're playing characters that like to have guys in the same zones, there are plenty of that revolve on people being in multiple zones. There are no triple zones in this area. There's only doubles. So some guys aren't going to play as well with that. Some guys that want to be in a zone by themselves, they have areas where they can kind of hide off, but also to keep in mind, though, is that they're also big giant clumps of like 4 or 5 areas all at once. Then there's the sewers here, which actually hit the 4 corners and then the 2 sides. So it's an interesting way to navigate around the bottom and the sides of the map very quickly. So it's a very interesting map to play as. And at the very top, we have stuff actually specifically for Shredder. So he has his threat meter. It counts in blues, greens, purples. Each one has to do with, I don't think that could do with the areas. They might. But yeah, it's where they're trying to take over everything. And then he has some burrow tokens we're going to get a look at. Do that. And he has little foot soldier tokens, spots. Which we'll look at those in just a minute, because they have to do with his specifically. Then we have Krang's Technodrome. So he has a threat tracker top. His does not have numbers, because his numbers are represented by the little Krang faces. So he has 1, 2, 3, and 4. And he's trying to expand Dimension X. And this also has a very interesting, neat board. So usually every other board has always been like, typically has been like a city space or location. This is inside the Technodrome, which is as big as a city, so it's kind of a neat, different idea. But these kind of play a little bit more semi in columns, and the columns actually do make a difference for Krang's mode, but that has to do with his. But if you're just playing this as a regular map, yeah, we have some definitely interesting little things in here as well. We have like our like teal over here, which jumps into orange a little bit. But we have a lot of crossover back and forth between each area. But it's also to note, like, if you want to go from this column to this column, you can go like, there's areas to go, definitely. And the same thing here, there's areas to go here. Areas to go from this one to this one. But there's not a lot that lets you go from one all the way across to the other. So you kind of got to play around. Even like here on the bottom, you have to go up and then down. Then you could go all the way across. The top, you could go all the way across. But then, yeah, there's just lots of stuff that's connecting to everything. We have a couple of triple zones. We have a bunch of double zones in there, mixing and matching all over the place. So yeah, even though it's a big board and it has a lot of different zones, nothing is really unaccessible or blocked off. You get some of the other boards and maps where they have stuff like maybe the top part is kind of blocked off, like you have like a walkway by itself, and there's nothing there. I think other than like you only get a couple of little things like this where it's, like this one spot is by itself. You can only get it from the top or the bottom. Like almost everything else has at least 2 different spots, if not more, can go to them. Like that one only has the one. This only has the one. Ones there, but yeah, there's a lot of them that have a bunch of different areas. So I think it's going to be a lot more like, you're not going to be able to really go to a spot and hide somewhere or be out of someone's zone. Because like if you're in here, you can access all of this purple, all of this orange, all of that. Same thing, you can access all of them. Here you got that half and that half. You get kind of, and then you just have to step to one zone and you might be able to access an entirely another set of zones. It's very, 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 very cool. So before we jump in right at Shredder's deck, let's just kind of look at how he plays and what we're trying to do with him. That way, when we're looking at his deck, we know what he's trying to do. So Shredder wants to conquer New York. Has attacked New York with the Legion of Foot Clan soldiers. He plans to control each borough one by one. At the end of each round, Shredder's initiative advances. At the end of each round, Shredder's initiative card advances the threat marker one space, plus one additional space for each borough on the map where he has at least one foot soldier token. So if he can keep guys out, he's going to keep advancing this faster and faster. And then if you don't attack him, it'll go faster. So every turn it'll always go up at least one. Each time a threat marker reaches the end of the threat, Shredder completes his objective. The borough is under threat, follows through his forces. Many of 4 boroughs fall. Shredder gains control of the cities, and the hero loses. I know it says any 4. I think it means if all 4. Is what I meant to say. I don't know if any 4 of the 5. Sorry, that's if any 4 of the 5 fall. The 5 boroughs is divided into 5 boroughs with enough stack tiles on the top of the board show that the borough is currently under threat. Once a borough tile is flipped to the fallen side, it will remain that way for the rest of the game. They're not as the same as zones, they're only used for Shredder's thing. Losing a borough. Each time a threat marker reaches the end of the track, immediately do the following steps. Shift the borough stack one space to the right, flip the top tile to the fallen side and place it in the vacated space. Flip all foot soldier tokens in the fallen borough from patrolling side to the entrenched side. Deploy a patrolling foot soldier equal to the number of players on the borough that is now under threat. So what you're going to do is he's going to have this stack here. He's going to show which borough you're talking about at the time. Manhattan, Staten, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. And then as he defeats them, up at the top side, they're going to be sitting up there. They're going to slide over, flip over, and now his side is spawned. You see one side's purple and one side's red. And if he controls all 4 of the 5, you lose. And that's just kind of neat because you can shuffle them up and you can play them in different orders. So it's not always, oh, he's going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to do kind of random. Then he's going to have his little foot soldier tokens. Which are going to be one side purple, one side red. So they're going to come out normally just being these little purple ones. They're going to be on these little spaces here. And then like he's trying to take over Manhattan. He's got like 4 spots. And then if he wins, they all get entrenched and they flip over to the red side, which has an additional effect. And then they stay there. And then he plays one for each foot soldier in the new areas. So like if Brooklyn was discovered, he'd look down at Brooklyn and he'd place a foot soldier in each spot. If you're playing a 4-player game, he'd play 4 of them. Foot soldiers are kind of a pain in the ass. It's 24 tokens representing mindless army. Always occupy foot circles on the path. Can only be 1 foot soldier in each circle. Foot soldiers have different effects depending on whether they're patrolling or entrenched. They're access to spaces, you can never stop them. When patrolling, a foot soldier and the boroughs have not fallen or always patrolling. Patrolling foot soldiers have no inherent effect and can remove using maneuver actions. Entrenched foot soldiers and the fallen boroughs are always entrenched. Any player or fighter moves over an entrenched foot soldier, that fighter takes 1 damage, even if it was moved by an effect. Your foot soldier cannot be removed. So basically his big threat is if he takes over Manhattan and he gets all of these guys entrenched, right? So it'd be like 2 more there. I don't have enough tokens out right now. And then of course here's our threat token. It goes up at the top. But what would happen is he will, anytime you have to walk past one of these guys, they're going to deal damage to you. So as he controls more and more of the game, he's going to make it harder and harder for you to get across the board. Like, if he took over Manhattan and you were in Staten, all of a sudden he's trying to take over Queens, and you have to get up there, your quickest way is, if you're like in one of these spots over here, it would be like, go 1, 2, 3, 4. Is like maybe run through there. But then every time you'd have to go around each one of these guys, because if you try and run straight through them, you're going to take a bunch of extra damage. So again, if you were down here on this one as one of the Ninja Turtles, and you went 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to take 3 damage. So instead, you're going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You're still going to take a damage there, and there's if there's not a guy up at Queens that's entrenched, then you could go all the way around, go 4 or 5, like, right, although this guy's in Queens, so he wouldn't hurt you, but, but there's that thing is, not only are you taking more damage from just trying to get around the board, because maybe Shredder's in an area and you have to walk through it, or you can't retreat. Like another good example there might be, like, let's say he took over Brooklyn, and now he's blocking both of these spots. Now, right, if you're in one of these areas and you need to back up for some reason, you can't really back up into Brooklyn without taking a point of damage from him. Unless you go, like, way down to the sewer here and then go over, and it's like, so it makes it as a very interesting mechanic, because you have to then start, as he takes over more and more of the board, you have less and less options of where to go without just taking random extra damage. How do we get rid of them, and how are they deployed? Shredder uses an effect to deploy one or more foot soldiers to a burrow, place that many tokens from his supply in the indicated burrow. If the burrow has not fallen, place them on the patrol side. If it has fallen, he instead places them on the entrenched side. If the effect does not specify where to place them within the burrow, choose which empty foot circle to place them in. So now, what could happen is you could take over Manhattan, right, and he could have one guy in there, and then you defeated all, but he managed to get his marker to the end. Only the one guy gets entrenched. So at least that's the upside, is the more and more you can take out and keep them guys from coming back, is that he won't be able to overwhelm one area. So you do have a way of protecting yourself. It's not like as if he took this over, also now it's 100% unaccessible unless you're not taking care of foot soldiers. But if all foot soldiers in a burrow are occupied and more are to be placed, then they can deploy them with the next highest starting space number. So then they'll just keep placing them. So again, as you're not defeating them, you have to worry about more becoming entrenched if he takes over, as well as you just have to deal with them spreading out more, so that makes it even harder to win. Removing foot soldiers. When playing as a maneuver as an action, they may choose to move one of their fighters to remove a foot soldier. Each time the chosen fighter moves over a patrolling foot soldier during the move, remove the foot soldier and return the supply. It does not require discarding any cards. You only move foot soldiers with one of your fighters. Each time you maneuver, foot soldiers will be removed with maneuver actions, not other movement effects. So, like, Leo's ability to move any fighter does not let him get rid of someone. It has to be a maneuver action. And patrolling ones can only be done. So, like, Raph here could spend his one movement, which gives him 2 spots, and he can spend a boost to move it up to a 3rd spot. So he goes 1, 2, 3, and he gets rid of 2 guys. So basically the idea is they want you to keep moving around the board to keep taking care of the foot soldiers. And remember, though, it says, at the end of each round, his initiative card advances 1, plus 1 additional space for each burrow on the map where his 1 foot soldier is taken. So he could easily, there's 5 burrows, he could go up 6 every turn if you leave 1 guy in each area. So as a cooperative game, you're probably going to have to spread out a bit and make sure you're taking each one out. So yeah, he's very interesting. So before we head into Krang, let's take a look at Shredder's deck and see what he does against us. Just a really quickly before we hop into there. So we do have our 4 player tokens. These are just so you know who player 1, 2, 3, 4 are, only for the purpose of the initiative cards. So when you're going through the initiative deck, when 1, 2, 3, or 4 pops up, you know which player they are referring to, so you don't have to keep trying to remember. Now, they could have color-coded these to, like, the Ninja Turtles, like, oh, one's red, one's blue, so on and so forth. But then the problem is that if you're playing with other characters from other sets, they might not have those specific colors. You can pop off bases, but that's kind of a pain in the ass. Then they have the initiative cards for Shredder. So he has his standard one. So Shredder takes a turn. He gets to move 3 spaces. At the end of the round, advance marker 1 plus number of foot soldiers in there. Then he also has each Shredder to the streets. Each player deploys 1 foot soldier to the Shredder's burrow. So if wherever he's at, he's also now going to play up to the number of players there. Again, if there's a 4-player game, he's going to get 4, but it could happen that maybe One player got defeated by this time, and now he's down to 3 or whatever. Cool. Then we have his health counter, so we're going to take a look at that. So yeah, the bosses always get the double ones, because they're going to start with more or less health, depending on the number of players. So you have up through 40, and then you have 1 through 9 in here, so you can keep track of that. It's kind of neat, the little thematic with the little blades on there, and on the back. And then we have his miniature. Let's see if I can... We'll put his card up here for a sec. See if I can get this into my handy dandy. So then we got his. Now it's cool because he has the color cape. Now it would have been neat if they would have done that with the turtles as well, giving them each a colored bandana. But I could see how they were molded. That might have been kind of difficult to do, because here I'm sure they made the cape, threw it on, then glued his head back on. But all this is definitely like the 90s Shredder, but he does look a little bit more evil. Plus that gray scaling looks really cool, the wash on there. Alright, so what does Shredder do against us? So, first card we'll look at is his Deception card. Breaking news, eyewitness account of the Foot Clan leader. So again, like I said earlier, it says whenever this card is put into Shredder's discard pile, shuffle his discard pile back into his deck, including this card cannot be cancelled. And those other cards work a lot like the regular game. He has 3 copies down here of Shredhead. 3 attack, 1 defense. During combat, +1 to this card's value for each foot soldier in Shredder's burrow. After combat, to play 1 foot soldier to Shredder's burrow. So he wants to kind of hang around his Foot Clan if he can, because he becomes stronger when he has them with him. 2 copies of Maybe Next Time, Turtles. 4 copies, 4 attack and 3 defense. After combat, place Shredder in a burrow with confused foot soldiers. Then to play 2 foot soldiers in his burrow. So he's gonna try and drop some of these. Then he's gonna have 2 copies of Blades All Over. 3 attack with 2 defense. After combat, Shredder's initiative card is revealed. Put it on the bottom of the deck. Otherwise, deploy 1 foot soldier to Shredder's burrow, then deal 1 damage to each hero and sidekick adjacent to the foot soldier. Okay, so why would it not be? If he's playing this for defense, great. Then he's going to deploy foot soldiers and deal 1 damage to each hero and foot soldier adjacent to a sidekick adjacent to a foot soldier. So again, keeping these guys eliminated is going to keep you alive. Otherwise, you let too many of them get up, you're going to get overwhelmed. Although if he's attacked already, this just basically gives him a second attack for the turn. Or then gives him another initiative so he can do it again later on. And then he has 2 copies of Dishonorable Aroko Saki. With a 2 and a 2. Immediate. Cancel the effects on an opponent's card. During combat, if there are 3 or more foot soldiers in Shredder's burrow, ignore the value of the opponent's card. So, very, very, very good. So they only have a couple of cards. They don't get like a giant sprawling card as big as the regular heroes, but they have enough that they're going to be able to like keep playing these over and over and doing stuff. Plenty of stuff with them, which is pretty cool. Alright, so that's Shredder. So yeah, he's definitely going to be a threat. You can see how he's going to be a pain. And then again, not only are you dealing with Shredder and his foot soldiers, you are also dealing with henchmen, which we haven't went over, and you're going to have up to 3 henchmen in every match. So you're going to have a kind of like little mini bosses, or other player characters you have to deal with too. So it's like, well, he's dropping foot soldiers around, you might have to deal with Mousers or Bebop or Rocksteady, some other big threat. So it's definitely going to be challenging. Alright, now let's take a look at Krang and Krang's board. So we'll flip this over quick and we'll look at the Technodrome. I'm Krang. Shredder, why are you letting the turtles beat me up? Alright, Dimension X Incursion. Krang used his Doomsday Machine to pull our world into Dimension X. He's littered the battlefield with traps to stop the turtles from interfering. At the end of each round, Krang's initiative card advances the threat marker 1 space, plus an additional space for each of his Doomsday Machines is active. Now, he only has 3 of those Doomsday Machines. So yeah, he's not going to be activating them. He's not going to be like activating his stuff nearly as fast. So if we scroll out and look at his thing, but he also has a lot less things. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the 9th one he does it where I think Shredder had a lot more. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess he only had 2 more, so it's not too bad. But it might also just depending on how well he can get rid of stuff. The border between worlds. Dimension X markers represent how far Dimension X has expanded. Each time Krang completes the objective, place the Dimension X marker on the next numbered space. All spaces are underneath the markers are Dimension X. Areas to the right of the markers are in our world. Enemy players may feel free to move in and out of Dimension X. Fighters receive no inherent penalties for being inside Dimension X, but some of Krang's actions and traps will have stronger effects while they're inside of it. So this is like showing this. So he has these different markers here. So he's got 2. He kind of gets more intense each time. 3, 4, and 5 on the back are just labeled like that. But then as you beat each one, they're gonna cover up a spot, showing you have each one of the 5 areas complete. So kind of like Shredder, where he's trying to take over the 5 bureaus. Here, Krang wants to take control of the 5 columns. And then as you start off, each column is considered to be in Dimension X. And then once he takes over this, he fills up, does that. Now this is in Dimension X. And again, normally, no gameplay effect. But he's going to have cards or different things that are going to say, oh, this does more whatever if you're in Dimension X. Or if he's in Dimension X, it might do something, whether, whichever way. Then what we have our little Doomsday control pieces. So these actually go on the board in these little spots here. And they have these switches. And then what you want to do is at some point is turn them off. But then there's things that are going to turn them back on. So unlike having a bunch of foot soldiers that keep getting spread everywhere, you know exactly where these 3 tokens are at all times. And you kind of know them. And they're only on the one half of the board. There's nothing over on the other side here. So you're kind of, when you're fighting, you're going to kind of be focused on the one side. But that's also the side that's going to be in Dimension X the most. There might be times when you have to be like, I know he has a card coming up that's going to hurt me a lot if I'm in Dimension X. I might need to run back over to Section 3 or Section 4 here. To get out of the way. But then if he flips this token here back over, now you have a lot farther to travel back. So it's kind of a back and forth interesting thing there. So how do these Doomsday Machines work? Each of Krang's 3 Doomsday Machines starts active side with a green check mark. Flip it over, because to flip it over, you must end a maneuver action with one of your fighters adjacent to it, then discard 1 action card from your hand. So this also makes it tricky, because like Shredder's foot soldiers, you can just walk through and get rid of. These ones you have to move, you have to stop next to them, so that means you can't use it as your turn to get closer to Krang or do something else, or whoever else you're fighting. And then you actually have to lose a card, so it's going to be a little bit trickier. You only deactivate 1 machine each time you take a maneuver action. You must have a fighter adjacent to the machine after you finish moving all your fighters. Though it does not have to be a fighter that you moved. So this could be like, I could end if I'm playing like Leo Splinter. Beginning of my turn, I could move Splinter here with Leo's ability. And I could move Leo somewhere else. Move him up to like one of these other ones. Prep him for a later turn. And then I could use the maneuver action to move Leo, right? And I could have Splinter get rid of one of them. As long as I did the maneuver action and somebody ended next to it. So yeah. The yellow wires connecting these Doomsday Machines show which spaces are adjacent to it. So you can kind of see they have these. It's showing that's the adjacent space, that's the adjacent space. It's not whichever one's just wherever you decide. Like, this one doesn't count because it's not close to it. Then we have Technodrome Traps. When the Technodrome Traps initiative card is revealed, Krang activates one of his traps, revealing the top Technodrome Trap card. Then roll the die of Ultimate Destruction and resolve the corresponding effects on the card. A roll of X means the trap is a dud. It has no effect resolved. After resolving a trap, place the card face up in the discard pile. No more cards, shuffle, and start again. So he's going to have special trap cards that are going to do stuff. And the no numbers on Krang's threat track. Current threat level is number of the space of the highest Dimension X marker. And that's only there because there might be something that comes across the board that says, or one of the gameplay elements, or maybe in a future version, you had something that says, this does this if the threat is this high. So reactivating the machines. When resolving the end of round of Krang's initiative card, if at least one dude's machine is inactive, roll the die on a 3 to 5, he activates it again. So you're going to be constant battle trying to turn these things on and off, because he's going to get a roll of die at the end of every round trying to turn it back off. So you can shut off all 3, he might turn on 1 every turn. And then re-rolling. Whenever Krang rolls the die for any reason, whether it's for his machine, it's for a trap card, it's for whatever. Any player may discard 1 action card to have the die reroll. Players may do this any number of times before resolving the effect. So again, you could sacrifice to try and keep that stuff from happening. So that's basically what he's trying to do there. It's nothing terribly difficult in the general scheming of what it is, but we do have his goofy face to deal with. I'm Krang. So here's his little thing. I love that his hands are kind of like around these that kind of act like the little knobs. But then yeah, he has his health dial. And it's like, he's just pushing all over the little wires in the back. Even though half of them look like they're broken. Just doesn't really help. And we already saw these. And then he has his die, which you just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and X. But yeah, kind of a cool little mechanic. Something you can always use for other things as well, if you ever thought. Then he has his Technicome trap to look at. He has his deck. And let's look at his 2 initiative cards quick. Then we'll look at his miniature. So his initiative cards are... Krang takes a turn, he moves 3. It adds a threat marker by 1 plus the number of active machines. If there are any machines that are inactive, roll a die on a 3 to 5, activate the leftmost machine. So you can be entering, but once it enters Dimension X, there's no way to back it back out. You have to defeat him to stop that. Then he has Technicome trap card. Reveal the top card of the next trap card and roll the die. So very, very cool. Let's take a look at him. So he's in his android body, of course. And there's a little pink guy inside. Now he is in there, I think, loose. So if you want to take him out for whatever reason. But yeah, definitely everyone knows this. So again, this is a very... So I don't think I can just shake him out. I kind of can if I really try, but I don't want to. So just be careful of that when you are using him, you don't lose him in there. I think I turned him sideways. But yeah, this is the very 80s, gang version of him trying to get a Technicome. If you're familiar with the more current IDW storylines, he has different bodies and stuff, and there's a lot of Ultrons, which is his alien race. And he does a lot more stuff in there. But yeah, he's kind of more of a sinister looking body than that. So let's look at our trap cards quick. He hits the button in the middle to activate a trap. I love it. So we have LaserNet. And now this part always reminds me of the old TMNT video games, because if you ever played the video games, there's always at least one stage where you're fighting inside the Technodrome, and you had to deal with lasers and traps and stuff going off that you didn't fight when you were in New York City and things like that. So 1 to 3, deal 1 damage to all heroes and sidekicks in Dimension X, or 4 to 5, deal 3 damage. So again, if he hasn't drawn his trap initiative card yet, and you know it might be coming, you're like, oh, there's 3 cards left. Everyone might want to try and be like, hey, if we can't, if this hasn't went off yet, and it's our turn, we might want to get out of Dimension X, just so we don't take the extra damage. But again, that's where the first couple of rows where all them triggers are going to be. So I imagine the first one's always in there, so you're always going to have to be a risk on trying to shut that one off. But then the second and third one, if it gets too far, then also now you're always risking every time to try and keep them turned off. So then we have Ooze Tanks. Roll 1 to 5. King and each minion recover 1 health. Any other Dimension X recovered health equal to the roll instead. The Twisted Path. All players with a fighter in Dimension X discard the top card of the deck. 4 to 5, all players with a fighter in Dimension X discard 2 random cards from their hand. Oh, dang. The Weather Sphere. Advance the threat marker 1 space. 4/5 advance the threat marker equal to the number of spaces equal to the roll. So either a 4 or 5, which dang, so I could like really increase that super fast. There you will probably discard cards to make him re-roll that, right? Blade Bots. 1 to 3 deal 2 damage to each hero in Dimension X. 4 to 5 deal 4 damage to each hero in Dimension X. Now, I'm going to notice this right here. Deal 1 damage to each hero and sidekick, versus this one's more damage, but it's only 2 heroes. So this won't hurt your sidekicks. Trapdoor, 1 to 5. Place a hero sidekick in the starting space, matching the roll. If that starting space is Dimension X, they take damage equal to the roll. Which, if we look at the board here, so our starting spaces on here are 5 over here, 4 is down here, and then 3 is up on top. And then it's 2 and 1 on the last spots. So if you roll high, you are taking a lot of damage, because those are the ones that are going to be in Dimension X first. The Wall Compactor. All players with a fighter in Dimension X discard cards from their hand or the top of their deck equal to the roll divided as they choose. And then the Energy Loop. Activate 1 machine in Dimension X. Activate all machines in Dimension X. Dang. So yeah, those are pretty crazy. Alright, there's no way to get rid of his initiative cards, so once they hit and they go off. So pretty crazy there. Alright. Then we have Krang's deck himself with his big old smushy face. So we are going to have 2 copies of Big Brain Move. 3 attack, 1 defense. During combat, if Krang is in Dimension X, this card's value is equal to the threat level instead. After combat, if Krang won the combat, activate a machine. Interesting. So his card's value is equal to the threat level instead. So 3 is pretty good. But again, the higher the defense, it could go up to 4 or 5. Interesting. Here we have 2 copies of Advanced Ultron Tech. During combat, add the threat level to this card's value. So that'd be whatever's on the top of his little head. After combat, if Krang is in Dimension X, place the loser of the combat in the highest numbered empty starting space. So again, trying to shove them back farther into Dimension X. 2 copies of My Body. During combat, if Krang is in Dimension X, add the threat level of this card's value. After combat, deal 1 damage to each hero and sidekick. And then, defense is separate, so this only works if he's doing attacking. If he's defending, he just gets 3 defense. He's got 1 copy of I'll Handle This Myself. He's got a little chicken walker, robot-led seek. After combat, if Krang recovers 1 health for each adjacent hero and sidekick, advance the threat marker that many spaces, then place the opposing player in the highest number of starting spaces. So dang, so if he jumps in and he gets this card, he gets to heal and gets to up that threat marker. 2 copies of it. You can't outsmart Krang. Oh, I turned him into little baby turtles, and then now he's gonna play whack-a-mole. Immediately cancel all the effects on the opponent's card. During combat, if Krang is in Dimension X, ignore the value of the opponent's card. And then finally, he has his Deception card. Breaking news! Alien brain creature with Napoleon complex threatens city. That's right, because that's the giant android body. No, so that's pretty cool. That is what we have for these guys. I know I was going to do all the henchmen and stuff in one video, but I think this video is going a little bit long already. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back. Part 3 of this will actually be all the henchmen and the rest of the initiative stuff, and then we'll come back and do a part 4, which is all the bonus stuff. See you guys there. Bye.